The number of money habits that we unconsciously pick up from our parents, the way they speak about money, the way they refer to money, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or the way that they spend money, we see that and we immediately start building our own default patterns towards it.
I think always look at reducing friction when you want to see compounding happen.
The key thing about these default habits is that they are silent wealth builders.
Which means I have so much money left at the end of the month that I can actually put it back into that same system that I've already set in terms of SIPs.
Correct. Hello and welcome to the Compounding Mindset by Axis Mutual Fund. I'm Ashdin, doctor, your habit coach, and with me we have Paridhi Doshi, our resident fitness coach. Now, today's topic is very interesting. We are talking about our default habits, our default behavior systems. And by default, we mean that we don't even realize we are doing these things. How are these things happening to us? As a habit coach, I spend a lot of time trying to figure this out. And in fact, one of my biggest talks ever was on this topic of not to just blame our genes for why our lives are the way they are, because we've inherited our genes from our parents, but what we don't realize is that we've inherited our habits as well. And our default habits are the habits that we've always taken for granted, like everyone does this. Everyone has sweet with their lunch or dinner afterwards. Everyone sits and watches TV in the evenings. We've seen our parents do it, and hence this has become a part of our default habits. Most of our life is subconsciously picking up habits that either our parents had, or friends had, or even that we saw on TV that we don't realize that we are doing. And these default behavior patterns have shaped the life that we have today. So every time I meet people and they're like, Ashdin, I don't know why I'm like this, I keep telling them that the life that you've created up until this point is nothing but the default habits that you had not even realized that were happening all through your life up till now. What does that mean? That means that if you want to make a change, if you want your life to go in a different direction, all you have to do is become aware of these default habits, and then with that awareness, put in conscious habits. So the entire idea is the movement from default to conscious, and then once those conscious habits become a default again, that is when the whole cycle is complete. So I've just given you an outline of how we're going to talk about this very interesting topic about default habits. Paridhi, I know when people come to you, probably just by looking at them, hearing them for a few minutes, you can immediately understand what their default habits are. Like, what are some of the cues that you pick up when you speak to people?
A lot of times when clients come in, I think the basic idea for us is to understand who they are and what makes them, rather than just understanding their goals. Because those default systems, those are the underlying things that are going to change and actually turn into progress. So a lot of times when people just speak about how their day goes, you can immediately figure out these are things that they're doing without even thinking. It could be as simple as, oh, I wake up and have a cup of tea. If they're hungry or they're not hungry, doesn't even matter. It's just a default system, okay? In the morning, you need a cup of tea.
And 4 almonds that have been soaked overnight, 3 anjeers, 2 fruits, and 24 something else.
Correct. People wake up really late at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. and sleep at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Why? They were doing absolutely nothing. Because somewhere along the line, as they grew up, there was this habit or this just system of spending time together by watching TV. And suddenly that watching TV has turned into binging, and now it's 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and that entire cycle has disrupted. So these are underlying systems that I think people don't even understand that they have picked up along the way without questioning them as to, okay, am I really hungry? Do I really need to watch like 10 episodes at a go? Do I really need this in life? And just making those tiny changes, and at least asking them, okay, why are you doing this? And 9 out of 10 people will not have an answer for it because they didn't even know. They weren't even aware of the fact that they actually picked it up along the way. And once, as you said, as they just become aware of it, it becomes so much easier for them to not do it. Another thing that ends up happening, especially with food, is when you ask people just to simply track. They're eating whatever they're eating, don't change anything. Just track what you're doing. And once they start tracking what they're doing, they immediately realize that, oh, I didn't even need this, but your extra calories got added, and I had my full lunch, but everything was carbs and fats only, there was no protein in it. It's just that simple awareness, and without even asking them to change it, they will automatically change it. Because they never questioned, they never stopped and even thought about, okay, what's actually happening and why am I doing it? They didn't even know that that was happening in the first place.
There's such a beautiful thing when it comes to awareness. As soon as you become aware of that default habit, you have the ability to change it.
Correct.
Till then, you're a victim of it.
Correct.
And our whole idea is to move from this victim mentality to an awareness mentality. In your case, it's so interesting because you see this person for probably an hour, maximum an hour and a half in a day. They go back and you have no control of what they do afterwards. There's an old saying that just doing 1 hour of the gym in the morning doesn't make you an active person.
Correct.
You have to be an active person through the day. So this whole thing of how do we then start bringing back the default habits and changing those so that they turn into these active people, or they turn into people who are living healthier habits, is such an interesting challenge for you.
Very interesting. And very recently, a couple of blood markers for my dad did not turn out to be well. He leads a sedentary life because it's a 9 to 5 job. He will have that 1 hour of walking that he would go and do, but rest of the day it's pretty much sitting in front of the laptop. But now when he had this actual number reflected in front of him, that meant like, okay, everything is not really nice and I need to do something about it. A simple habit of, okay, I'm going to eat my food and I'm going to walk for 15 minutes. He didn't even realize the fact that he was eating and sitting. Why? Because everybody went back and sat on their chairs. Instead of, okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go get water, I'm going to chit chat with a few friends, and then I'm going to come back. All in all, still working on that digestion process and getting his steps in and then sitting back has made a world of a difference.
Correct.
But because in that environment, the default is to go and sit back and just get back to work, nobody's even thinking about having and adding this tiny little thing that's not even going to take anything out of you. So sometimes your defaults are so correlated with your environment that the minute you become conscious of where you are, and as a result of that, who you've become, it's so much easier to be cognizant of it and do something about it.
Yes. The same thing in the habit world comes when it talk about financial habits and money habits. We don't realize this, but the number of money habits that we unconsciously pick up from our parents, the way they speak about money, the way they refer to money, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or the way that they spend money, we see that and we immediately start building our own default patterns towards it. So a large part of what I do is also when it comes to financial habits, how do we start tweaking them? Now, you can have default habits that are making you more and more progressively broke. Correct. Or you can have default habits that are making you more and more progressively wealthier.
Correct.
Ideally, go for the more and more progressively wealthier. And the goal of today's episode is to figure out how we can create these default progressively wealthier habits for, us and our audience. Because these default habits have the ability to compound over time.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about these default habits is they keep working silently in the background. They're not requiring you to have an active decision making, because we have so many choices and so many decisions to make in the day that at the end of the day, when something is not automated, when something is not quietly working in the background, you'll be like, I'll do this tomorrow, because now I have to spend extra 2 brain cells to think about it. I am tired. So we really hit a decision fatigue.
Yes.
And as a result of that fatigue, we don't end up doing things that are probably very important for us. So as you said, from going into being that, oh, it was just there, to actually being cognizant of it, to actually making it intentional, and then to making it automated. Because now that automated process again has fed back into the loop of becoming a default process.
Correct.
Because you took away the fact that you had to actually make a decision about it. As simple as, and I would always thank my father for this, he started SIPs for me. He went like, I'm going to take away this decision and now I'm going to make it a recurring thing for you. So as I said before, every month start, Papa said save money. Money is getting debited from my account. But because of that, I became cognizant of the fact that, oh, I'm actually saving. And I put in more money because now I can see that money compound and I can see my wealth and my finances be better and increase. And it just became so much easier for me to take that next step for it as well. And to not have to think about it twice because I've already, it's like somebody set that default system for me. And now it has become a conscious decision for me.
So that conscious decision, so it moved from default to a conscious decision, and then eventually it'll go back to a default. Where
Exactly.
you never have to think about it, never have to worry about it, and for the rest of your life it'll just go.
Correct.
Like that aspect of default habits is beautiful, especially when it comes to saving, investing, and how you don't waste your money on things that you earlier thought were extremely necessary. So our defaults can be also the way that we spend money. Every day, every month you get a salary check and the first thing you do is go and shop online. For many people that's a default. Correct? Immediately I go to the website and start using it. Or at my late night scrolling that takes me up all the way to midnight, I end up buying a couple of things because by that time my decision fatigue is completely gone. I will only be making poor decisions.
Or keep adding more on your food delivery apps because
Correct.
what else are you going to do?
Exactly. Oh, the
Right.
chocolate cakes come. I keep telling people this example. Imagine you've had a long, tiring day. You made so many decisions through the day. You come home, you open your fridge, and you see a chocolate cake and a salad. Chances are you're not going to go and eat the salad. You will by default eat that chocolate cake because you're being tired. So what we have to do is we have to try and remove as many decisions that we make in the day so we actually make better decisions in the end. Like so many of these tech CEOs who only wear black or only wear white or only wear a particular kind of thing, they never have to think about what they're going to wear. It's a default that has been set for them.
I think a beautiful default that has been set through my life that has really saved me a lot of money in college is my mom making tiffin for me. Right from school all the way till today. I always have food coming in, which means I'm not spending my money on having to order in every single time, which means I have so much money left at the end of the month that I can actually put it back into that same system that I've already set in terms of SIPs.
Correct.
And it's not something that I even think of, right? So sometimes I really ask my clients to set systems that takes away decision making, right? If that means you're buying your weekly groceries, don't buy monthly groceries because you run out of things. Daily is just way too much. Just buy it weekly. Set up your food schedule weekly and forget about it.
Food prep, meal prep is another great thing, especially if you don't have mummy cooking for you, if you
Okay.
don't have somebody coming home and cooking for you. On a Sunday, cook enough meals for the rest of the week. And then what you do is then you by default have only that to eat throughout the week. So you remove the entire decision making process.
And by the way, this is one of the things that top athletes across the world do. They cook their meals, they bulk cook their meals, their veggies, everything, so that when they're actually fatigued, physically fatigued from working out or training 4 or 5 hours in a day, it's so much easier for them to make that choice because it's already been done for.
Correct. And our choices are not, and our working environment is not 5 hours of physical workout, it's 5 hours of mental workout, right? This budget or that budget. Should I be putting this slide in the presentation or that slide in the presentation? Should I be saying this in the copy? So you realize that what has happened is that the number of decisions you made at work completely overwhelm the kind of decisions you're going to make at home. Set default structures. A default time when you go to sleep, a default alarm for when you wake up as well is brilliant. So you don't have to say, oh, maybe tomorrow I'll wake up at 7 and then day after tomorrow I'll wake up at 6 and then I'll play around with. No, every day you wake up at the same time. Set those defaults into place.
And what would be a couple of ways that people can actually set defaults? Because as we spoke about, they're not really aware of it. So if you have to pick or say 3 things that, okay, this is the way that you can actually get things into being aware about it and then actually making them your default, how would somebody want to go about it?
So the first one is to change your environment. So I call them habitat habits. So in fact, it was going to be one of my books that was going to be called Habitat Habits, where you go around your house and you see what are the small changes that you can do that immediately translate into something better. For example, replacing your normal white salt with pink salt. If you believe that is healthier for you, Replace white salt with pink salt, and you will never have to go back to thinking, oh, I'm using so much white salt, because your only default is pink salt at home. So a simple thing like that, where you've completely replaced it. Again, it can be the quality of the toothpaste that you use, or the kind of dishwashing powder that you use. If you're trying to, live a healthier life, the organic vegetables that you buy. As soon as you've made that decision once, you then don't have to make that decision over and over again. So one is the habitat habits, the kind of environment that you live around. The second one is choosing the kind of people that you're going to be spending time with. So, for example, you hanging out with people in the fitness industry automatically will give you default fitter quality food that you would probably eat, or events that you would go for which would be around fitness. Like you recently won a competition, right? All your people, all the friends in that competition would also be taking care of their health. So it would become like a little ecosystem for you, where you are feeding off each other in terms of an idea, and the default choices become relevant. It's not that when you're there, people suddenly say that, oh, let's order pizzas and cheesecake. Probably they will still think about salads and something that's healthier for themselves. So one is the habitat, the environment. The second is the people. And the third is the way that you track your habits, because awareness is the key part. I remember when people tell me, Ashdin, I'm so busy, I have no time for this, I have no time to exercise, I make them list out everything that they do in a day. And once they see everything they do in a day, it's like, I've wasted so much time. I didn't know this is what I was doing. And they automatically go back and start changing. So if you can track what you're currently doing and have your epiphanies and aha moments from that tracking, you're automatically halfway there into your default habits. Then you just have to choose, what is a better version for me? What is moving me towards my goals and not taking me away from my goals? And then just start replacing that with the current default that is there.
This is so absolutely correct, because the entire environment system has had such a big impact in my life, because one simple choice of deciding to work out at a certain place completely changed the set of people that I was with. It changed the idea of what's cool and what's not cool. It made it it made it okay to, yes, sleep on time, wake up on time, take care of your health, don't eat outside so much. And eventually, it all translated into how I lead my life today, and what is okay and what is not okay. So I think that entire environment aspect, just picking yourself up and putting yourself in a new environment, does so much. And there's something that I've also realized with defaults and being more aware about it. I'm not sure if you agree or not agree, but I always feel that there's a certain discomfort that comes along when you're not okay with a certain thing, but you just keep constantly doing it. There are times when you struggle against it and you feel like, okay, I'm not comfortable, something's not sitting right? It could be as simple as when I was in college, I did not enjoy eating out. I did not enjoy spending that money. But sometimes when you're like with people, with your friends, you just end up doing that. You'll be like, hey, I'm not okay with this habit. There was that resistance and that discomfort. And that discomfort actually made me realize that, hey, I'm not okay with this. And maybe it's time to pick up a new thing and change this and actually do something better so it can compound in my life in a far greater way.
Correct.
Rather than what it is right now.
So for you, it might not have been the food, but it might have been just I need to spend time with friends, which is why I'm going out. And for many of us, food is just social in that sense. So another great way of making a default choice is on your food delivery apps. You, instead of doom scrolling to find that perfect chocolate cake or the brownie, etc., you just have 3 restaurants that you order from, and you know exactly what is healthy in those restaurants to order from. So you don't have to doom scroll through the food apps in case you're ever hungry or you want a snack or you want a dessert. Find a healthy dessert in that itself and then use it. I tell everyone, make it your default habit to check the menu before you go to a restaurant to eat. So you know what you can order and you don't have to look at the menu there and waste time with it. When somebody else is going, oh, should I have the noodles or the rice? You know exactly what you're going to have. So that's a great way of removing decision fatigue when you're in that situation where peer pressure can sway you this way or that way.
Makes it also simpler in terms of just your investments, right? You've got your SIPs, you exactly know what you want to invest in, and you just keep doing that. Rather than have to talk to like 10 other people, take 10 different advices, not know which one to rely on, and suddenly you're all confused. But the minute you've made it an automated system, you've decided, okay, 2 things for this month, done.
Absolutely.
2 things for that month, done. And now it's working silently in the background, and it's working as a system in itself.
Just like you have your favorite restaurants, you have your favorite mutual funds or your favorite investment tools that you're going to be putting in. So as a result, it's either this or this. I'm not going to rack my brains every time. The decision fatigue has disappeared. So Paridhi, how do you make sure that this decision fatigue aspect does not affect your clients when they're coming to work out?
I think the number one thing that I do is to make sure that they turn up at the same time.
Okay.
So one thing in their routine is fixed. They don't have to be like, oh, I have to come at this time, I have to come at this time, I have to come at that time. So 10,000 things are not revolving around it. Come at the same time. So that creates a consistency where that entire decision fatigue of how do I manage my day after this is completely taken care of. And I think the other thing that a lot of people struggle with is somebody just programming and telling them what to do. When somebody does that, you are no longer responsible for thinking, which means you're not resistant again, like, oh, now I don't only have to show up, I also have to think what to do.
Correct.
And once you remove that, it works beautifully because, hey, you have set the time to show up and we have told them what to do. So complete decision fatigue from that has been taken out. And I think that really works wonderfully in terms of creating a very sustainable routine which they look forward to. Because now week on week they know, oh, I did this last week at this day, I'm going to do this again today. Which means I can see myself grow and be better at that day, and I can see how stacking those habits up, showing up consistently is actually compounding and improving my health and my fitness.
This is fantastic. Not having a decision. I see so many people coming to the gym and saying, ab kya kare? Right? Should I do chest today? Should I do back today? Should I just do cardio? And in that process itself, they've lost the game. Someone telling you, do this, do this, do this, and you're set. And having a good advisor, having a good way of actually putting it into place. The key thing about these default habits is that they are silent wealth builders. They're not that one-time trade deal that you made and you made so much money that you tell all your friends about. You can't boast about your default investment SIP habits because they're not that kind of cool thing. They're just silently working under the surface. They're almost like your ninjas of the entire financial process. They work in the background and they are so effective in what they need to be doing. So I think this whole way of looking at default habits and creating these financial default habits are very important.
It's just like your sleep. The most underrated thing works so silently and gives you the best possible returns. And yet nobody thinks about it.
Nobody thinks about it. Everyone's like, oh, it's such a waste of time. No, it's the busiest time for your body. Actually it reminds me of these automated SIPs where every month on the same day at the same time your money is going to get invested. It's exactly like your workouts. You be there at 7 o'clock. Same way. On the 2nd at 4 p.m. or 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whatever it is, your money is going to immediately get invested. These automated defaults, I think, are the best way of generating this silent wealth. You can't see it happening, but years down the line, you suddenly look back and wonder, how did it happen? And I think that is the magic of compounding.
I think always look at reducing friction when you want to see compounding happen.
Take out all the excuses that you can possibly think of. That's friction. And then see just the magic take place.
Automate, outsource.
And don't touch it.
Very important.
Very important. Let it compound. You've been watching The Compounding Mindset with Axis Mutual Fund. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit like and tell us in the comments below what are your default habits that you've seen. Also, subscribe because there are new podcasts coming right for you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.